So this is Joanna Wilson. I know her through my daughter, Joanna. And she met Joanna at college, and she was in the same journalism class. And they quickly connected because they were both Christians in a very non-Christian environment. And from that point on, Joanna moved on into a place of ministry that God called her to, which was into CRU, which used to be Campus Crusade, right, for Christ. And they're calling it CRU now, but I was very impressed by this little gal because, first of all, she has a testimony. She has a true testimony, and she has kind of soldiered through a lot of stuff just to get to where she is, but she's using her journalism degree in the CRU organization in communication, and she does a lot of she writes a lot of the stuff that goes out on their web page and on their, I'll let her tell what it is, because we talked a lot, but we talked about a lot of other things when we were having our little meal together. But anyway, I've been impressed with the integrity that this little gal has, and I think you'll be impressed too. So, Joanna, this is...
Okay, so I'm just going to say this right now. I work with written words. Speaking them is not my area of expertise. So yeah, a little bit brief explanation of what I do. I'm on it's called the external communication team. We do a lot of setting, messaging, agenda, what's going to be communicated both in print pieces as well as online about the campus ministry within CRU. CRU is much bigger than a campus ministry, but it's my area. I do a lot of editing of documents and stuff. My team's working, we do a lot of writing the copy for materials and things that go out to be used by our staff on campus. But yeah, as I met Joanna in a journalism class, which I loved the class. It was an interesting class. But yeah, so a little bit of background about me and campus and stuff. So yeah, I showed up on campus as like this super Christian. I have all the apologetics, all of the answers. I had more apologetics to throw at people than I had opportunities to use it for, but the thing I was lacking, it's interesting she mentions that I connected with Joanna, because we did, but at least for me it was kind of on the surface, because while I was equipped with apologetics, what I was sadly lacking in was really the tools to connect relationally with people and build deep connected relationships, so I could make friends, but they were kind of surfacey, and I wasn't alone. College students today are coming onto campus really without any script, training, experience in building real connections. Just person-to-person connections are a lost art. Loneliness and isolation is really an epidemic on campus today. Students just like me don't know how to make friends. They don't know how to build healthy emotional connections. And that, there we go, leads to what happens is oftentimes students turn to all kinds of risky, life-damaging or destroying behaviors, such as drugs, alcohol. That often leads to suicide. And a lot of students, that's also where a lot of students end up experimenting sexually. It's really a search for human connection, someone to care, someone to connect with, and if they can't get it through a healthy way, they'll find some way to get it. Where are we? But the kind of exciting thing is really with this, that's an amazing opportunity for God to start to work, because God made us to be relational creatures to need him and also to need each other. And so this is the avenue that God is starting to build communities of students who are reaching out, inviting students into friendship, into relationship, to experience what a real community looks like. And so, yeah, with CRU, kind of the current mission that we have is to find these students where God is already at work, give them the tools, give them the training, give them the support to be able to keep reaching out, to better invest, to find students like me where I was like, I wanted to change my world, but I didn't know how to show people I cared first. So to give those students the tools and training to be able to do that. It's interesting because in my experience and for what we've started to see with students, while apologetics and like real answers to questions are very important, oftentimes those are to support a student who is already considering, already thinking, maybe this is what I want. Today, to really connect with a student and bring them in to get to that point, the first thing they need is to experience the body of Christ first. To experience a community that will genuinely love them and welcome them, a community that they don't have to prove that they belong by engaging in drugs or alcohol, a community that will love them like deeply emotionally without simply physical affection. And it's interesting because a lot of the students today care far less about the facts and much more about who cares about them. We live in a world where you can find support online for anything. So the real question now is, okay, you have an answer to my question, but do you care about me? And so oftentimes what we see is students adopt the worldview and the belief system of the group that embraces them, that welcomes them in, that cares about them. And so one of the avenues that we have for that, for a number of steps, is our winter conferences. These kind of have different purposes for different audiences. So first of all, students who are Christians are wanting to engage. It's got really deep theological training, as well as like, this is how you reach out to your friends. This is how to engage. This is how to care. At the same time, there's also a component of building relationship, building community, building a sense of team connection, because different campuses come as groups and they do a lot of stuff together. So to bring in those students who are curious and investigating and figuring out, is this something that I want? And so I got a couple of stories from our most recent one in San Francisco that we had this in mid-January. You got my sound? We had sound earlier. It's not letting me. It's apparently thinks the sound is controlled by someone else, but that's what it already. That was not me.
For me, looking back at who I am as a person and the identity of Christ, I was born with a type of cerebral palsy, And like back then I was very, very hesitant in who I was, and I didn't really know like why God gave it to me. But now I know like it's okay, because that's how he made me, and he made me in his perfect image. And when I looked down at that mirror at the last evening session, that's me and that's who I am. And there's nothing I can do except the fact that it's God who is in it, and I can reflect him in that. So for me, I know that there are people who are very secluded in certain disabilities. Like I know people who are disabled, like back down at OSU and down back at my hometown in Beaverton, Oregon. And I just want to be able to show them that it doesn't matter like what you look like on the outside, because I mean, we're just in a body, and that's in God. It's a perfect body that God created for us. And so being able to reflect that and putting Jesus in front and reflecting that light outwards towards people is really important, and I want to be able to reflect on other people.
So with that kid, I was not the one running the camera. I was actually asking him questions. So it was a fascinating story actually involved with him. We were just randomly pulling people out of the main final night party, going, talk to our camera, tell us like what your takeaways are. And we kept trying to find a good sound spot, and he kept kind of giving false starts, and he'd start to answer my questions and they weren't really engaging. They weren't really like connecting down at an emotional level. And then we finally found the empty auditorium, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna restart completely. I just finally realized what to say. And then he just started talking about how the final session had really been about like how has God made you to fit perfectly to reach some group? Who is God sending you to? And he just started telling this story about like how God was calling him to reach out to other people who had different kinds of disabilities, who were viewing themselves as in some way less than or broken, which was really cool to hear actually a number of the stories of students we interviewed, just how they had both been touched by God through the conference, and then how they saw how God was sending them out to engage with some community. And this was actually my favorite story, just because we're like, this next one, we were like, okay, what's a cool story of what happened? And he just starts talking, and we're like, this is cool. Did it move?
2 nights ago on the Who Do You Want to Come to Christ poster, I signed a couple of my friends' names, and last night I was praying to God for humility, because there's a lot of places where I've been selfish, I feel like, and I wanted to surrender to God and ask him how he wanted to use me. So last night, after that prayer, I looked up and I saw my friend's name, and I felt like he was calling me to call that friend on the phone. And it was 1 a.m. And I was like, that's actually probably going to be pretty weird. I'm going to wake him up. He's probably going to be mad at me. He's not going to want to talk. But so I called him anyway. And he answered immediately. And I was like, hey man, what's up? It's Kyle. Like you saw on Facebook, I'm at this conference, and I'm sitting here all alone, and I just want to talk to you. And we caught up, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm just standing here in my kitchen cutting an orange. I'm like, well, that's weird. I'm glad that you're up though, because otherwise I feel like you probably wouldn't have picked up. So I just feel like I want to pray for you. How can I pray for you? And he said, I want you to pray for me to find meaning in life and for direction. And so we did that. And he said, lately I've been, because he's not a Christian, he wasn't, spoilers. But he said, I've been wearing a cross and I've been reading the New Testament. I was like, man, that sounds like God is working in your life. What led you to that? And he's like, specifically, why are you wearing a cross? And he's like, well, I was at a thrift store and I was just drawn to it for whatever reason. I was like, okay, that's cool. Why were you drawn to it? And he's like, or like, what's special about that cross? And he's like, it's not so much the cross as the necklace that I wear it on. The chain came from my ex-girlfriend, and it reminds me a lot of pain and despair that I've been through, and it reminds me the redeeming quality of that cross, how my spirituality has helped me through that. It's like, okay, how has that helped you? And he's like, the more I learn about Jesus, I've learned how small and insignificant I am in this world, but despite that, he still loves me so much. And I was like, this man gets it. That's the gospel right there. And I was like, well, I'm so happy that you feel that way. And when I came to faith, which was just October of last year, one of the first things that I did that helped me to move forward was to profess my faith out loud to my pastor, and to pray for the Holy Spirit to be with me. And I was like, have you ever thought about doing that? He said, I haven't. I haven't done it. I was like, if you would like to do that, I'm on the phone here with you. And it sounds like God is working in wonderful ways in your life, and I'd be willing to listen for you. And he's like, I think I want to do that. I was like, are you sure you're not just trying to appease me to get me off the phone at 1 a.m.? And he's like, no, I'm serious. Like, I feel like this is the natural continuation of what's been going on in my life. So he prayed right there at 1:15 in the morning on January 19th for the Holy Spirit to enter his heart and his acceptance of Jesus' death for his forgiveness of sins, and that he just wanted God to be with him. And I was like, you did it.
So I hope you could hear that. It's a little bit quiet, but yeah, that was, again, another really cool thing to see a student who's literally there still at the conference, reaching out to a friend back at home that now he's back with, to be able to see God work through him in that. And another cool project that I am actually working on right now is there's a team that are putting together a kind of a new curriculum for graduating seniors to help them shift from college campus has one set of relational complicated situations and stuff, but then once they get out into the working world, trying to get connected to a church, get connected to a Christian community just in life is 50 times harder. And so the curriculum is to help them continue to engage, continue to reach out, figure out what does that mean to go from reaching out to dorm mates to reaching out to neighbors in your apartment complex, your neighborhood, people that you work with. So that's a in-process project right now that we're editing and stuff. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, the thing is, it's like this is something that everyone can engage with. Everybody can make a new friend. It's not just students on campus who need someone to reach out to be their friend. It's the people around you as well. I mean, this is the model that the church is based on. And right now in this cultural moment, the church has a chance to really dig in and engage in relationships in a world that has really lost the art of connecting. It's interesting because today is St. Patrick's Day, and the way Patrick reached Ireland was he built communities. And the communities just invited anyone to come in, experience life with them. It's like, you can be exactly who you are. You don't have to embrace what we believe, but you can come in and be with us. And that was really how Patrick transformed Ireland. And I think that's really what we're kind of at this point where we need is we talk now about how in some ways discipleship starts before salvation, where we start to teach students what does being an apprentice of Jesus look like? What does it look like to walk where Jesus has walked and to do what Jesus does? And that's when students start to fall in love with Jesus and figure out, okay, maybe this is something that I want. That's then when the questions of like apologetics and stuff come into play. But it's after they've started to explore this Jesus thing in community. And I mean, the reality is making friends is hard and awkward and weird, and culturally we've lost the script, and so it's hard to reach out to people around us, which is what's cool, because like CRU has tools that anyone can use in their neighborhood, in their school, in their workplace, and I wanted to introduce you to a few. And very much answering the question of what does it look like? Like, what are the steps? How do you reach out? And so that's what the Mission Hub app, it literally walks you through how to make a friend. You put in kind of the people around you, you put in where you think they are in sort of a spiritual spectrum, kind of what your connection, how close you are to them, and then it will start to give you prompts of ways to reach out. Invite this person to coffee, listen, ask for their story, find some way to be able to point out the Imago Dei in them, ways that they express God's image, ask them how you can pray for them, little steps, and you can log them, and it starts to kind of be like, oh, they're starting to move in closer to Jesus. And another app that is also really cool is the God Tools app, which is like, if you get to that point when they're like, okay, tell me about this Jesus thing, how does it work? God Tools has a bunch of different like step-by-step short gospel presentations you can walk people through that are, well, first of all, they're not like the awkward pulling out a tract, which is really unculturally, it's just culturally weird now, but it's not weird to pull out a phone app. And a lot of these things are revamped. I don't know how familiar you are with like classic Campus Crusade for Christ, but the old Four Spiritual Laws has been kind of repackaged in an app form that is it's super cool looking, and God Tools is really cool. And yeah, I would love to connect more, answer questions, get to know you. I'd love to put you on my monthly email update list. And you also, so text me if your name and if you want your email address, if you want to be on my list. Text me if you want a link to those apps I mentioned. Text me if you just want to say hi or connect. Questions? Anyone? Okay.
You see, so like as you're working for CRU, you're using your journalism and things. How much of it, as far as like a percentage, how much of what you do is kind of meeting and dealing with students and trying to help them in some spiritual formation type of way yourself, and how much of it is setting up a venue for other people to be able to do those things?
It's primarily the setting up, providing the materials, providing this, being the behind-the-scenes person, so our staff who are much better about connecting face-to-face with students have a setting to do that with. Although this summer I will actually be working directly with students, more my kind of students. We're going to have a team of student interns this summer at our world headquarters. And so they're bringing, I work remotely based in Portland, so I will actually be at our headquarters in Orlando, Florida for a couple of months this summer, working directly with a team of writers. So my kind of people. Give them a chance to experience what it is to use their skills and talents to support the ministry and missions. There was a hand. Yes. That's very much one of our frequently asked questions. We actually have one of the ministries within CRU is specifically to faculty. where we help Christian faculty connect with and reach out to their fellow faculty. So while we get pushback, generally CRU's, I don't know if you say policy, but standard operations tends to be to work within what the university would like us to do if possible, because we don't want to burn bridges. So if they're like, we really don't want you like cold talking to students, we'll try to avoid doing that if all possible. And part of it too is figuring out the most effective ways to connect with people without setting up unneeded barriers. So finding if like a big evangelistic event might not be the best way to connect with the university community. A better way might be to figure out some kind of a justice initiative, like raising funds to combat human trafficking. That's something that will build connections across wildly different groups and organizations and give us a chance to build real relationships with faculty who we may disagree with on every other point, but we can agree on let's stop this, which begins to, again, build relationships and give us a chance to invite people in. Going, gone.